Good evening, and thanks for watching or listening to episode 79 of VIP Boxing's Bell to Bell podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, please leave a comment that we might like. Or if you download it for Spotify or iTunes, leave a nice review. That helps gets us pushed up the rankings as, I don't know, over there, WBA pod rankings. I don't know what they are, but John Evans is the genius of that and tells me it pushes us up. And also, VIP Boxing's YouTube, please subscribe to that. It's about 17,500 subscribers, so it's going quite well. And Steve Wood's happy with that. You know me, Steve Lillis. You know John Evans. He's wearing the VIP branding tonight. He's got that famous poster art behind him there. Even I've come boxing tonight. Canelo Alvarez, Liam Smith, mate. That's my not quite as big as Ernest Duran. Anyway, special guest this week. He's our first ever topless guest. I believe he's got shorts on. He's topless because he's in Fuerteventura and hasn't got air conditioning in his bedroom where he's training at the moment. It's Unbeaten Coventry Middleweight, Brad Goldsmith. Bradley, thanks for coming on, and first time we've had you on. Your manager, John Pegg, speaks very highly of you, and you're training with Dominic Ingle. How's everything going?
Very well, mate. Very well. First of all, thanks for having me on. And then I'll just quickly say as well, I'm not managed by John. I'm managed by John Ingle. It's all right. It's all right. Same first name, so it's easily done. But yeah, things going really well, mate. As you just touched on briefly, obviously training out in Fuerteventura for my upcoming fight. So no complaints, mate. You know, just working away, putting my head down.
Yeah, sorry, I thought it was John Pegg because when he ran me up, I've got someone who will stand out on the pod. And he goes, it's one of my fighters. But I suppose that's because you fight on these shows. And I think you're chasing number 4 July 2nd on a show John's putting on. Yeah.
So it's my 4th outing coming up. And it will actually be my fourth fight on one of John's shows. So you know, John's been quite good to me starting off in my pro career. So yeah.
You're good amateur, Brad, and I know watched the interview with you. You might have liked to stay amateur a bit longer, but the situation in the world maybe forced your hand a little bit. But now you find yourself out in these training camps in Fuerteventura with Kid Galahad's out there, isn't he? I saw Jack Raff, Liam Taylor are out there, and is it like a real eye opener as to what it takes to succeed as a pro when you see these guys and the life you're living now?
Do you know what? It's mad you actually started on that, because I was literally on the phone to my dad probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, and I was touching on that subject that you just said. You know, I really thought today and really, you know, really deeped it at how fortunate I actually am. And what I mean by that is, you know, being able to experience the training camps, being around, you know, world-class fighters, high-level fighters, you know, fighters with all different levels of experience. It's very surreal, mate, you know, and I can't really believe I'm here. I also can believe I'm here. You know, I'm obviously here for a reason with that in mind. So it's very good all around, mate.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you, we'll kick on now with the pod. How this works, Brad. John gets a bit angry if you're still speaking after 3 minutes. John, what happens at the end of 3 minutes? Brad knows. John Pegg's warned him.
Comes back.
And he'll be on he won't be on an EasyJet flight tomorrow to Fuerteventura to sort you out because they're all cancelled. He'll be having words with Rafferty and Taylor. He's 2 close pals.
Sort me out.
They're his pals. They are them 2.
Top lads they were.
But anyway, we'll start with you, John, and you want to talk about a bit of appreciation for somebody if you've got your clock running there.
Yeah, everything's ready to go. Yeah, we mentioned him last week, didn't we, when we were talking about various fighters and pound for pound lists, and how good was Inoue last week against Nonito down there. I was so glad that he reminded everybody just what he's capable of. You know, he had a hell of a fight, didn't we, a couple of years ago where Nonito's 36, which is ancient for a bantamweight. And I just wondered if people thought Inoue might have just hit his peak and maybe just on, you know, leveled out a little bit. But for those of us who've watched him since he was competing in the lower weights, just obliterating people, that was a welcome return to form. The thing I love about Inoue is he doesn't load up on a single thing. He's a horrendous power puncher, but it's his accuracy. Everything's just timed to perfection. The distance is just right. It's the right shots at the right time, and he's an absolutely brutal finisher. And I was pleased Inoue just showed everybody exactly what he can do. I believe Ring Magazine have put him pound for pound #1. How high you can go in the weights, I don't know. I don't know if he's big enough for super bantam, but it looks like we've got another 3 or 4 years of Naoya Inoue at his very best, and that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, just quickly touching on that. I think it's almost like he re-announced himself, if that makes sense. You know, because people they were still comparing their previous fight, you know, and people were still trying to question, is he really the real deal? And the outcome that was left after that fight is absolutely, you know, he was fluid, like you just said then, scary power for someone so light. And it was almost like faultless, if you know, it just went completely right from that night.
You know what, the name we're giving this round, or what John said, was an appreciation of Inoue, and it's quite right, you two have lavished him with praise, but I just think he's almost underappreciated, that he's not in the mainstream. He should be as famous as Canelo. And if he was, is there this sort of inverted snobbery in boxing where because he's Japanese, people look the other way in the mainstream? If he was American, British, Mexican, or Puerto Rican, he would be the biggest name in the sport, in my opinion, because the world would know. Like, everyone knows Canelo. Like, you know, my wife doesn't follow boxing much, but she knows who Canelo is, you know. But going what you said, it's what he does to very good fighters. He hurts them.
Makes them look average.
Exactly, that's what it is, yeah. His highlight reel is incredible, but the guys he's taken out in his highlight reel aren't just journeymen, aren't opponents. They're elite world-class fighters. And he takes them out clean. It's just absolutely sensational. What you just said then, Steve, I saw a few people on Twitter saying Top Rank need to get him back over to America and turn him into a star. Yeah. And that's exactly what you were just saying. There's no need for that. He can do whatever he wants. We can match him with whoever. And Inoue is the goods. Send it around.
And now, Brad, away you go, mate. You want to talk about self-confidence, something that stable that you're in, there's plenty of.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just touch on this, really, you know, because what I found was when I first turned over is I personally wasn't that self-confident. I had plenty of people bigging me up, you know, telling me things that probably at the time, yes, I wanted to hear. And you don't really appreciate it because you're going, yeah, you know, when someone's almost blowing smoke up your ass, you just tend to go along with it. But until you fully believe it yourself and you actually have that self-confidence of, no, I deserve to be here. I am this good. I have got this. I can do this. It's such a playing factor that I've found out in a boxer's career, you know, because if you've got no confidence, to even with your training, you know, if you're not confident in training and you're not reaching your maximum potential in training, you're never going to be confident going into the ring because you know you took shortcuts prior, you know.
Yeah. Do you know what? Funnily enough, I've been speaking to someone. Story in Boxing News. Actually, I won't tell you what it is because it'll ruin it. But there's like a, how can I word it now? People who are doing things for the right reasons, flattery and stuff takes a back seat to honesty, doesn't it? They can see through bullshit and they can see through flattery. They can see through fake compliments to the actual nuts and bolts of it. And I suppose that's what you've got to do, Brad, isn't it? You've got to find out, you know, once you realise, yeah, I'm right, I'm doing the right thing, I'm good enough, I'm doing this for the right reasons. You begin to see it all clearly, see exactly what you've got to do and realise that you are good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it earlier, you know, when I first come to the Ingle gym, I was a bit like, you know, bloody hell, I can't believe I'm here, you know, because at the time I generally couldn't, you know, I was starstruck, I was this, and then it's not until you actually get settled and you have that bit behind you where you're like, no, I deserve to be here, you know, and that's where the confidence comes from. And I believe when you're confident, that's when you actually get the best out of yourself.
Yeah.
And that shows, you know, whether it be in training, fighting, what I do in my spare time, in my downtime, in camp, out of camp, you know, all these things play a massive part.
I mean, self-confidence is enormous. I mean, how many fighters do you think there are that get in the ring lacking self-confidence and they become defeated before they're in the ring? It happens so often, doesn't it? I mean, and I've heard stories. I'm not going to name the fighter because of the two fighters. It's totally unfair. I know one fighter who sparred with another one, and every time he sparred with him, he had to stop sparring because he was just draining his confidence. Oh, there you go. Round 3, and I'm going to start this one. Chisora Pulev. This is a subject that Bradley wanted to talk about as well, so I know he'll have something to say. I mean, I just think, look, good luck to them. They're nicking a few quid, but I just don't know how you're getting away with this fight because neither of them. I don't know what. Neither of these two are ever going to be in the world level again. It's going to go at the O2 Arena, and it's just another payday. I just don't see where it's almost like the 80s and 90s when Don King and main events had all these heavyweights, and they kept recycling them. It's like a 1980s, 1990s Don King recycled heavyweight match. It just does nothing for it. And I'm just one. The only hope either of these two have got of getting back in the world stage is a last-minute job in a big fight. Who knows? They might have been told. Who knows? You know, boxing works in the strangest way. They might be told with a winner, stay fit. If Joshua gets injured, you're fighting Usyk in Saudi. They don't lose the dough. That's what could be happening. But it's a fight that does nothing for me, and it's one I don't miss much boxing on TV when I'm not at a show, but it's one I won't even bother watching.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it, and you know, I mean, my opinion's completely irrelevant, to be honest. But you've almost got to ask yourself, when do fighters like that stop? You know, when's it enough? You know, and it's like Chisora especially, he's brought plenty of glory days, you know, to British boxing. He's obviously always in entertaining fights and stuff like that. But it's like, it's probably got to the point now where it's like, yeah, we all expect a big fight from Chisora. Yeah, win or lose. But you want to be watching someone that you're invested in, that you actually want to win, and you want on to, you know, go and do these big things. And I just don't think either of them are, as you said, Steve, are going to be able to do.
No. There's that saying, it's two bald men fighting over a comb, isn't it? It doesn't matter who wins. There's no future for either of them, is there?
Yeah. It's just like a pointless fight. You know, it's just, it's entertaining, and it's, you know, people will get their money's worth. But it's like you just said, there's no real end result.
What worries me for Dell is how many losses now? He must be double figures now. I think he's lost his last 2 or 3, or might have won one of them. I'm not sure about looking at his record. I worry about the damage in later life because he's having hard fights. Hard fights. You know what? And he deserves what he's done for British boxing. He deserves to be able to enjoy life after boxing.
With his children.
He's been matched in brutal fights as well.
Yeah. Which is bad. John, round 4 over to you and the Hall of Famers. Hall of Fame weekend.
Yeah, well, it was a triple header at the Hall of Fame weekend, wasn't it? Because of a pandemic, they squeezed in 3 classes. And I'll tell you what, I was looking down that list of fighters who got inducted, and my God, I know there's usually some petty little arguments about people getting in the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's one single name on that list who anybody could even quibble with. The thing I like about the Hall of Fame is probably Mayweather's a good example. You know, these guys have earned fortunes, have been on the biggest stage. I've never been to Canastota, but I believe it's a quiet, small little place with maybe a motel and a couple of cheap bars. But when they're amongst the peers and they're amongst the people who make the living in boxing, you can see just how much it means to them, can't you? Floyd, that's probably the happiest I've seen Floyd look. And he was in a little town in upstate New York doing his parade in an old washed up sports car down a little street. But you could just see, it's a world away from the life he normally lives, but you could see just what it meant to him. And I love watching the Hall of Fame speeches. I thought they were really good. Hopkins was good. Roy Jones was great doing his You Almost Have Forgot rap. And I just think it's a real good weekend every year.
Well, I think it's brilliant about it. And that's what sets boxing apart from the other sports. What other sport, when they have a Hall of Fame, there was a football one, and I know I think there's an NFL one. would you get one where there's a weekend where the fans can openly mingle with these fighters? I think that's sensational, and it's such a fan-friendly event. It's one thing I don't agree with it. I don't believe us journalists should be inducted into Boxing Hall of Fames. That's one thing I don't. But no, it's a brilliant weekend, and that the Mayweather speech praising his father was genuine and from the heart. You know, when you think they have had a rocky relationship during his career, but and made up towards the end.
You just said then about Mayweather, you know, looking the happiest. You probably find in that situation, he's looking around and he's probably actually appreciating boxing again and realizing that boxing is what made him, you know. And like you just said then, Steve, that's probably why, again, he spoke about his dad, because it was his dad who started him off, you know. So he's probably going through all these emotions, you know, money aside, all the rest of it. He's happy because he's thinking, this is what's made me, you know.
Yeah, I do like it when someone who might have forgot or slipped under the radar gets in, and you can see, you know, when we get up on the podium and they make him a speech, you can see how much it means. I remember Orlando Canizales getting in. I love Orlando Canizales. Don might have you watching him. He's got that sort of Ingle sort of style. But to see him getting that was great. And yeah, I don't know. I just absolutely love it. You can see, like you just said, Brad, they realised that boxing made them, and maybe they lost track of it a bit, just getting focused on money and fame. But all of a sudden, when they're there, it all comes back to them.
Surprised you haven't been, John. Really surprised at that, actually. It's the sort of thing I know you would go to. I thought you would go to. Round 5, back to you, Bradley, and British titles and what it means.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this one as well, especially because I think a lot of people would be, well, my question is, would people be happier winning a British title or a world title? And I asked that because I think how many boxers, you know, truly believe that they can get to world level. I think you'd find there's a higher percentage that believes that they can get to a British level, you know, 10 times over a world level. So I think when they actually win, or, you know, will get a shot at the British, I think it means so much more. And I wanted to speak about this because I've seen my friend Leon Davis, he won the British title on the weekend. Not sure if you watched it, but and you could just see how much it meant. You could just see how much it meant, you know. And he's got a lovely tradition where he takes his bouts to his granddad, and it's just like that. Winning that title, you know, probably meant more than anything. You know, would him winning a world title mean more? I doubt it. You know, that for him was his world title. And it's just like, it made me think, you know, this obviously for British fighters only, of course, but how important is that British title? You know, how much does it mean, you know?
You know what, Brad? Funnily enough, I spoke to both Liam and Mark a couple of weeks ago. Mark Leach, who was the former champion. And Mark said, yeah, I've got the British title. He said, I might win a world title in the future. He said, but I swear to you, it won't mean any more than this. It's true. He said, this will be the belt that means the most to me for the rest of my career. I spoke to Liam and he said, this is the belt I want more than any other in boxing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you're exactly right.
It's just like, you know, I just don't think it's appreciated enough, you know, and especially once you got it, it's like, you know, because to some people, you can be in a harder British title fight than you actually can a world title fight. You know, which is obviously crazy in itself. So,
yeah, you know what?
And the fighters that win those belts.
Sorry, John.
No, go on, Steve. Go on.
No, go on, mate. You're in a debate there with Brett.
Yeah, I was going to say the fighters that do come through hard fights for the British titles and European and English, they're better prepared and battle hardened for the higher levels. So when they get to European level, when they get to world level, and it's not going right, they've already been in that situation. They can got that experience just programmed into them. Yeah, they're a godsend, and like you say, so underappreciated and undervalued. Sorry, Lillis.
Final round, so it's flown by. I've really enjoyed this. It was. I want to talk about Trevor Bryan at the weekend. Now, congratulations to Daniel Dubois for winning whatever belt you want to call, WBA regular, whatever. You know, what Daniel did was what very good heavyweights do, to bang ordinary fighters. They got him out of the way, and I don't think Daniel might not have believed how poor he was in the first round. And maybe he could have got the job done earlier, but the finish was fantastic. And Daniel's back. He's back, after the loss to Joe Joyce. But I just want to, but basically that fight the other night was what we would call a lot of people were speaking about. It was like an 80s and 90s Don King Phil fight to it. It was a sort of fight where he was like an American import Mickey Duff would bring over in the 70s and 80s. Dom will tell you about these guys and your dad, Brad, I'm sure. And they were brought over to get beat. It was just an international heavyweight fight, wasn't it, more than anything? It was a sort of guy, Brian was a sort of guy Mickey Duff would bring over for Gary Mason and Frank Bruno to flatten. I just thought, I'm not going to call me he was ever a world champion, but I'd seen clips of him before. But good God, I didn't realise how bad he was until after about 2 minutes of that fight. I'd never realised.
Yeah, and it's almost a shame because it's like that almost takes a bit away from Dubois' win, because it's like, yeah, he won, but him looking or being that bad, that's just created a but, but buts aside. Tremendous knockout, he's obviously got crazy power, and what I knew he was young, but I didn't realize he was 24. Yeah. So, so for me that, he's got his whole future ahead of him. And I do think he'll be one of those that do reign for quite a few years, pending people can, outbox him or something like that.
Yeah, that belt's a godsend for Daniel, isn't it? He can get these rounds in now. He can face these top 15 guys and get some momentum going. Hopefully, we get him out in a quick defence in summer and then another one before Christmas. I think that's what we've got to do. I tell you what, though, just before we finish, I loved that event.
Oh, it was brilliant. The old Don King logos and
I love
the flags
stuff.
and the
brilliant, brilliant.
I love stuff like that. If you offer me the chance to watch a proper run event or a farce, I'll choose the farce every time. The venue was a disgrace. The crowd was a shambles. The ring looked a joke. Every single aspect of it was terrible, but it just made it so good. I loved it. Frampton was great on commentary. I just thought it was sensational to watch. It looked like the same sort of venue and stuff when George Foreman beat Joe Frazier in Jamaica back in the 70s. And it looked like we were still using the same technology to broadcast it. It was like watching through tissue paper.
It was brilliant.
I just thought it was a fantastic event. I loved it.
And that Don logo that was in the top left-hand corner of the screen, that was the Don King logo from 30 years ago. It was brilliant. And if you want to get a real feel from someone who was there, read Steve Bunce's piece online. It's absolutely brilliant, And John, it's almost as if I don't know. I'm not sure if you read Bunce's piece yet. It's almost as if you read his piece, how you've related to it, John.
I've not. No, I look it up. I know Buncey loves stuff like that, doesn't he? So
he's from your school of thought. But Archie, you just touched on it. Just one little question each before we go. We always overrun on the final round here, Brad. How far do you think Dubois could go? I think you touched on it, Bradley, first.
I do believe he'll be a world champion. I think the talent factor of how long and how many bouts, etc., will come down to who else comes through or who stays. Because you've got other heavyweights that are coming through. You're also, in the next couple of years, you are going to have new prospects come through. They could get moved very quickly. There's so many telling factors that, you can't really pinpoint a straight answer. But I do believe he'll be a world champion.
Yeah.
When and how long for is still unknown, really.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. I think in a couple of years, the belt's going to get fragmented because Tyson will definitely have gone. Usyk, AJ, White, Wilder, they've all gone. Then there's the next batch of them. He's right there and he's going to be right in the mix. I think he wins the world title. As you say, how long he reigns for, I don't know. What one big thing in his favour, he lives the life. He's the sort of guy I shouldn't even think he's ever had a Mars bar. John, final words for you, Daniel. You know him quite well. You've been to his house.
Yeah. Met Daniel quite a few. Yeah, been to his house in Essex and no, there's no Mars bars in that house. But yeah, he'll be our world champion, but whether he'll be the world champion, I don't know. You can put ticks in all the boxes. He's got tremendous power. He's got a jab. He's better on his feet than you think. Funnily enough, you know, I know the ending of the Joyce fight happened how it happened. I thought he showed he's got a chin in that fight because he took some huge shots, didn't go anywhere. And he's also willing to mix it up. You know, in his early fights, he'll go to war. If someone's throwing, Dubois will throw with them. And they're all big things for a heavyweight, I think. So I think he'll definitely be our world champion. Whether he'll come through it all and be the world champion is a different matter, isn't it?
Well, brilliant, John. Thanks for that, John. Bradley, thanks for joining us tonight. You've been a tremendous
Thanks
guest.
for having me. Thanks for having
me. Brilliant talker for such a young fighter. You've got an opinion on boxing. And the problem you've got now is once you come on this podcast once and you shine like that, in a couple of months, we're back bothering you again. So you ain't getting rid of Lillis and Evans now.
I'll be excited. I'll be excited for the call, mate. Don't you worry.
Well, I tell you, it looks like it's getting even hotter there in Fuerteventura. Looking at the,
I think it is, mate. It is, mate.
I'll let you.
It's all right. It's all right.
What Dom's got planned for you now. Hopefully, we'll let you rest now. But thanks very much for giving us some time tonight, Bradley.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, John, and thanks everyone else who's listened this week. And don't forget to leave a review, subscribe to VIP YouTube. Thanks very much.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.